My husband announced he was leaving me in front of 80 people at our 30th anniversary party. His sister told me not to cry because I'd look crazy. His brother smirked from across the room like the whole thing was entertainment. And while everyone stared at me, waiting for me to fall apart, something was happening at the gift table that nobody noticed. Nobody except the cameras. And when the police reviewed that footage, every single person in that room understood why he really wanted all eyes on me. My name is Danielle Mercer. I'm 39 years old. I manage the cafeteria at Westview Elementary, which means I'm up before the sun most mornings, hauling trays and checking temperatures and making sure 200 kids get a hot meal before their first bell rings. It's not the kind of job that impresses people at parties. Nobody asks me follow-up questions about it, but I'm proud of it because some of those kids, that cafeteria meal is the only reliable thing in their day. I know what it means to be the person who keeps things running while everyone else gets the credit. I married Rick when I was 19. We built a life made of routine and loyalty and me holding everything together while he chased status and praise from people who didn't come home with us at night. In his family, I was never really a member. I was more like staff. His mother treated me like the help. His sister Tara corrected me in public. His younger brother, Dean, was the one they all protected and celebrated. Even when he bounced between jobs and borrowed money he never paid back, Dean could do no wrong. I could never do enough. My dream was simple and small and embarrassing to admit out loud. I wanted peace. One home where I didn't walk on eggshells. One morning where I didn't check someone's mood before I spoke. I'd been quietly looking into going back to school for a nutrition certification. Something that was just mine. Something that didn't need anyone's permission. But I kept putting it off. I kept shrinking, swallowing small humiliations to avoid big fights, laughing at jokes that weren't funny because silence was easier than standing up for myself. I planned the 30th anniversary party because I thought it could be a reset. A public declaration that we'd made it, that all those years meant something. I wasn't rich or glamorous, but I had something they didn't expect. If you've ever been humiliated by someone who was supposed to love you, hit subscribe. If you've stayed quiet just to survive a room full of people who were never really on your side, I get it. Click hype or like if you believe there's a moment when silence stops being weakness and starts being strategy. The banquet hall wasn't fancy. It was a mid-range place off the highway with cream-colored walls and round tables draped in white cloth. I'd spent weeks putting it together at a tight budget. Photo collages on foam board, a slideshow playing on a rented projector. Simple centerpieces I'd made myself with candles and grocery store flowers. It smelled like warm bread rolls and the vanilla frosting on the cake I'd ordered from a bakery to towns over because they gave me a discount when I told them the occasion. I invited close friends, church co-workers, a few neighbors, people who actually knew us, people I thought cared. Rick showed up looking sharp but distant. He wore the suit I'd picked out for him, but his eyes were somewhere else all night. He sipped his drink and scanned the room like he was waiting for something better to happen. Every time I tried to stand beside him, he shifted away, not dramatically, just enough for me to feel it, like I was too close, like I was too much. When the toast started, I felt hopeful for exactly 12 seconds. Rick walked to the front of the room, took the microphone from the DJ stand, and looked out at the guests. Then he said it. I can't do another year of this. She smothers people. She controls everything. I'm done. The room went dead silent. The kind of silence that has a texture, heavy and thick. Like the air itself had frozen solid. This is our 30th anniversary, I said. My voice sounded far away, like someone else was using my mouth. Rick tilted his head. Exactly. I've served my time. A few people gasped. My co-worker Linda covered her mouth. My adult niece, Janelle, grabbed my arm like she was afraid I'd collapse. And then Tara moved. She crossed the room fast, her heels clicking on the tile floor, and positioned herself between me and the crowd like a handler managing a situation. "She's been unstable," Tara announced, her voice steady and practiced. "We've all been worried about her." My body went numb. I felt my fingers tingling and my ears ringing, and I knew if I opened my mouth in that second, I would either scream or cry, and both would prove their point. So I didn't. I stepped away from the room and walked into the hallway. I pressed my back against the wall and breathed in through my nose, out through my mouth, the way I taught myself during years of swallowing things that should have been said out loud. That's when the venue manager found me. He was a short man with a clipboard and a concerned look on his face. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I nodded, even though I wasn't. "There was a disturbance in the back hallway about 20 minutes ago," he said quietly. "One of your guests was arguing with someone near the gift table area. Our staff noticed, and we flagged it." He paused. "We've got CCTV covering that section, and I think you should call the police before anyone leaves." I looked back through the doorway into the party. Rick was standing near the bar with Dean. They were whispering, both of them glancing toward the gift box on the far table. They kept looking at each other and then back at the box, like they were timing something, like they were waiting for the right moment. I walked to the gift table before anyone could stop me. The card box was a decorative thing I'd bought at a craft store, gold with a slot on top where guests had been dropping envelopes all night. I lifted it. It was lighter than it should have been. I opened it and counted. There were supposed to be at least 30 envelopes inside. I'd watched people drop them in throughout the evening. Now there were 14. Tara appeared at my side. Before I could even say a word, "Don't you dare accuse anyone," she hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself. Envelopes are missing," I said. From my gift box. Rick heard me from across the room. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "She's doing this because she can't handle being dumped. Look at her, making a scene over cards." "I'm asking where the gifts went," I said. "See?" Rick pointed at me like I was an exhibit. "Paranoid. Controlling. This is exactly why I'm leaving." People shifted uncomfortably. Some looked at their shoes. Some looked at me with pity that burned worse than the accusation. I turned toward the bathroom hallway to collect myself, and Tara followed. She cornered me near the restroom door, her body blocking the path like a wall made of perfume and judgment. "Leave quietly," she said. Her voice was low and precise. "Don't call anyone. Don't talk to anyone. You'll ruin his reputation." I looked at her. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out steady in a way that surprised even me. "He already ruined mine. In front of everyone." I walked past her and pulled out my phone. I called the non-emergency police line. I explained the situation. Calmly, possible theft at a private event. The venue had security footage. The dispatcher said an officer would come by. While I waited, I saw Dean moving toward the side exit. He had his jacket zipped up and his hands in his pockets, and he was walking fast. The kind of fast that people walk when they don't want to be noticed. I stepped into the doorway. Not aggressively, not threateningly. I just stood there, blocking the path the way you'd stand in a doorway waiting for someone to pass. Dean stopped. His jaw clenched. "Move, lady. Not until the officer gets here." Rick appeared behind his brother. He stepped close to me, close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath. And his voice dropped to something quiet and hard. "If you do this, you'll regret it." I didn't answer him. I pulled up my phone and started typing notes. Names, times, what was said and who said it. I was done pleading. I was done explaining myself to people who had already decided I was the villain. When the officer walked through the front entrance 5 minutes later, Rick's entire posture changed. He smiled. He relaxed his shoulders. He put on the same charming, reasonable face he'd been wearing for 30 years whenever someone outside the family was watching. My wife's emotional. He told the officer before she even reached us. "She's confused. It's been a hard night." What they didn't know was that I wasn't alone in that building. The officer who walked through those doors was named Lena Price. She was a parent at my school. Her daughter, Meyer had gone through a rough year in 3rd grade, and I'd spent hours helping Lena fill out the paperwork for the free meal program, staying after my shift to make sure everything was filed correctly so Meyer wouldn't miss a single lunch. I didn't call Lena directly. Dispatch sent her because she was the closest unit. But the moment she walked in, she recognized me. And I recognized her. Danielle, she said, her hand resting on her belt, her eyes scanning the room the way officers do when they're reading a situation before anyone explains it. Are you safe right now? I nodded. I answered her the way I answer a worried parent at the school office. Clearly, factually. Without drama. I need the footage preserved. I said, I believe property was taken from a gift table during the event. The venue has security cameras covering that area. Lena didn't flinch. She didn't look at me like I was hysterical or dramatic. She looked at me like a professional looking at another professional who was reporting a problem and expecting it to be handled properly. I showed her something I hadn't planned on using as evidence. Earlier that evening, when the gift table was still full and the party was still hopeful, I'd taken a photo of it. Just a memory shot. The kind of picture you take because you're proud of how nice everything looks. That photo showed a box full of envelopes. Now the box was half empty. Lena looked at the photo, then at the box, and nodded. I watched my husband's face shift when he realized the officer knew my name. The charm didn't land. The reasonable act didn't work for the first time that evening. Rick looked like a man standing on ground that wasn't as solid as he thought. His name was Cal Drummond. He was 52, soft-spoken, and he was at the party the night only because he'd come as a +1 for a mutual friend from church. Cal had worked with Rick years ago at a distribution company Rick's family owned a stake in. They'd fired Cal after a company fundraiser where cash donations went missing from a collection box. Cal was blamed. He lost his job and his reputation in that circle, and he spent years rebuilding both. He never got an apology because the money was never found, and no one ever looked at anyone else. Cal pulled me aside near the coat rack while Lena was speaking with the venue manager. I need to tell you something, he said. His voice was low and careful. Rick and Dean did something like this before. At that fundraiser, cash went missing and I got blamed for it. I couldn't prove anything then, but I know what I saw. He looked at me with eyes that understood exactly what it felt like to be the convenient suspect. If you need a statement, I'll give one. Officer Price asked the venue manager to pull the CCTV footage and log the relevant timestamps. The manager nodded and disappeared into the back office. Meanwhile, Rick's family got louder and sloppier. Tara marched up to Lena and said, "We don't consent to being recorded." Lena looked at her calmly. "This is the venue's security system. Ma'am, it's their property and their footage. Your consent isn't required." Rick tried a different angle. He raised his voice so the remaining guests could hear. "This is a civil matter. She's wasting police resources because she's upset about a personal situation." He sounded confident, but his eyes kept darting toward the side exit where Dean was, still standing, jacket still zipped, hands still buried in his pockets. I stayed quiet. I let them talk, because every sentence they said was revealing motive, panic, and the shape of a lie that was starting to crack under its own weight. Guests had gathered in the hallway now, watching. The whispers had changed. Earlier they'd been whispering about me, about the woman who got dumped at her own party. Now they were whispering about the gift box, about the footage, about why Dean looked like he was trying to leave. The venue manager came back carrying a tablet. He held it up so Lena could see the screen. "Officer," he said, "I've pulled the clip from the back hallway in the gift table area." The side room was small and beige and smelled like stale coffee from a pot someone had brewed hours ago and forgotten. Lena set the tablet on a folding table, and the venue manager queued up the footage. Rick, Tara, and Dean were brought in. A few guests lingered near the open door, close enough to hear, for enough to pretend they weren't listening. The first clip showed the gift table from a wide angle. You could see guests walking up throughout the evening, dropping envelopes into the gold box, smiling, patting each other on the back, normal party footage. Then the timestamp jumped forward, Dean appeared on screen. He walked to the table casually, like he was just passing through. But he didn't pass through, he stopped. He looked left, then right. Then he lifted the lid of the box and began pulling envelopes out, one at a time, tucking them into the inside pocket of his jacket with quick, practiced fingers. He did it 3 times. 3 separate trips to the table over the course of 40 minutes. The second angle was worse. It showed Rick standing about 15 feet away during each of Dean's visits to the table, not watching his brother directly, but positioned between the table and the rest of the room, stepping into conversations, blocking sight lines, redirecting attention. He wasn't stealing. He was running interference. Lena paused the video. She looked at Rick. "Is that your brother, sir?" Rick's jaw worked like he was chewing something he couldn't swallow. "This is being taken out of context," he said. I spoke louder than I had all night. Not screaming, not crying, just clear. "What context makes stealing from our guests okay?" Tara jumped in immediately, her voice high and fast. He was just moving the envelopes for safety. It was crowded. He was being helpful. The venue manager shook his head slowly. "Ma'am, he's putting envelopes into his jacket pocket. That's not safekeeping." Kel stepped forward then. He didn't raise his voice. He just spoke steadily, like a man who had waited years to say something that mattered. "I'd like to give a statement," he said to Lena. "I worked with this family. Cash went missing at a company event, and I was blamed for it. I believe there's a pattern here." Lena nodded and made a note. Then she explained the next steps. A theft report would be filed. The footage would be formally preserved. Depending on the value of what was taken, charges could follow. She asked Dean to empty his pockets. He pulled out 7 envelopes. 2 contained cash, 5 contained gift cards. Rick watched his brother set the envelopes on the table, and something in his face shifted. The big public breakup, the microphone, the speech about serving his time. It wasn't just cruelty. It was a distraction. He had humiliated me in front of everyone so that every eye in the room would be on my pain, while his brother emptied the gift table behind their backs. Rick looked at me, and for the first time that evening, his voice wasn't loud or confident. It was tight and small. "You're doing this to punish me." I looked back at him. 30 years of swallowed words sat in my throat, but I only needed 1 sentence. "No. I'm doing it so you can't rewrite what happened." Lena asked Dean to step to the side of the room. The words investigation and evidence moved through the doorway and into the hallway where guests were still standing. Rick's mask didn't just slip, it collapsed, and every person watching saw exactly what was underneath. I left the venue with my head up. The night air was cool against my face, and the parking lot lights hummed with a low electric buzz that sounded almost peaceful after everything that had happened inside. A few guests caught me near my car. Linda hugged me and said, "I should have said something sooner." Janelle held my hand and cried. I thanked them, but I didn't linger. I drove home, not to beg Rick to stay, not to call his mother and explain my side. I drove home to pack his things into 2 suitcases and set them by the front door. When he showed up an hour later, I opened the door just wide enough to hand them through. "You're not sleeping here tonight," I said. He started to argue. I closed the door. I locked it. The next morning, I called the bank and reported the missing gift cards. I changed every password on every account I had. I called a divorce attorney and booked a consultation for Thursday. I requested a copy of the police report. I filed everything in a folder and put it in the top drawer of my dresser. Practical steps, steady steps, the kind of steps I'd been taking my whole life, only now they were for me. In the days that followed, the truth spread the way truth does when it has footage behind it. People who had watched Rick dump me at that party now knew what he and Dean had really been doing. The whispers changed direction. Tara stopped posting online. Dean stopped answering calls from mutual friends. Rick's family, the one that had always treated me like I was beneath them, went quiet for the first time in 30 years. I didn't stay quiet that night because I was weak. I stayed quiet because the truth wasn't ready yet. And when it was, it didn't need my voice. It stood on its own. He dumped me in public to break me. The cameras didn't just show theft, they showed who he really was. If someone ever embarrassed you in public and then tried to paint you as unstable when you asked basic questions, I want you to know something. That's a tactic. It's not your imagination. It's not you being too sensitive. It's a strategy designed to make you doubt yourself so loudly that you can't hear the truth. Subscribe for more stories about taking your power back without losing your dignity. And share your story in the comments. Have you ever been set up to look like the problem? Well, the real problem stood behind you smiling. Click hype to help this story reach others who need it. Did this story hit home? Let me know by liking the video and sharing your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And your words matter more than you think. Click hype to help this story find others who felt the same way. Your support makes a huge difference, not just for this channel, but for every person scrolling late at night who needs to hear that they're not crazy and they're not alone.